Krishna, Krishna. Jai Om Vishnupad Padamansa Paribrajaka Shtotra Shri Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Nama Charja Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Sakaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shama Kun Radha Kunigiri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Tham Ki Jai. Navadip Tham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Ki Jai. Gangamai Ki Jai. Jamanamai Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande. Krishna Krishna Hari Hari. Go. 3:24. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurn Militam Jaina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Jaina Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Tadhati Shapadantikam. Puryam Kadachit Kridad Bhir Yadu Bhoja Kumarakai Kopita Muniya Shepur Bhagavan Matakovida. Is that right? Is that where we are? Yes, that is where we are. Once upon a time, great sages were made angry by the sporting activities of the princely descendants of the Yadu and Bhoja dynasties, and thus, as desired by the Lord, the sages cursed them. Purport. The associates of the Lord, who were playing the part of princely descendants of the Yadu and Bhoja dynasties, were not ordinary living beings. It is not possible that they could offend any saintly man or sage, nor could the sages, who were all pure devotees of the Lord, be influenced to anger by any of the sporting activities of the princes born in the holy dynasties of Yadu or Bhoja, wherein the Lord himself appeared as a descendant. The cursing of the princes by the sages was another transcendental pastime of the Lord, to make a show of anger. The princes were cursed in order that one may know that even the descendants of the Lord, who could never be vanquished by any act of material nature, were subjected to the reactions of anger by great devotees of the Lord. One should therefore take great care and attention not to commit an offense at the feet of a devotee of the Lord. Is that the princes wanted to have some fun, so they dressed Samba, one of the princes, as a woman. And they came before the sages and said, this woman is pregnant. She wants to know whether it's going to be a boy or a girl. So the sages weren't fooled, and they became angry. They said, she'll give birth to a lump of iron that will destroy your whole dynasty. And it so happened that then the boys, what to do? They confessed the matter to King Ugrasena. He said, well, because the lump of iron actually appeared, he said, well, take it and powder it, throw it in the ocean, get rid of it that way. But that iron powder was absorbed by the reeds on the bank of the sea, and it was those reeds with which the Yadu dynasty fought with one another and killed one another. So we're instructed here not to offend devotees of the Lord. This is highly destructive to devotional service. I was just reading yesterday that one of our godbrothers had some trouble in devotional service. Either he fell down or he got in serious spiritual difficulty. And Prabhupada wasn't surprised, because that devotee had published the fall down of another devotee. And Prabhupada was very unhappy about that publishing, that they should have been handled discreetly, not that you broadcast the person's difficulties throughout the society of devotees. But this devotee had taken part in broadcasting the fall down, and then he fell down. So we need to be very careful, even if we think that, we have to be righteous and set things straight and so on. We have to be very careful when dealing with devotees, because they're not ordinary human beings. They're dear to Krishna. The Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahmana Hitaya Cha. The Brahmins and the Vaishnavas are very dear to the Lord. So, sadhu ninda, blasphemy, or criticism of sadhus, saintly persons, or other offenses to saintly persons are called hatimata, the mad elephant offense. The description is given in Chaitanya Charitamrita. You water you get the seed of devotional service from the bona fide spiritual master by the grace of Krishna and the spiritual master. Then you water it nicely by hearing and chanting. Then you keep the weeds from growing. You pull out the weeds in the form of different anarthas. And then an elephant comes and stomps through your garden. Everything finished. So that elephant is the elephant of offenses to Vaishnavas. Especially one should avoid offenses to the spiritual master, but to any Vaishnav or to any saintly person, one should be very careful to avoid offenses. I haven't read Chaitanya Bhagavat, I've heard parts of it, but someone was summarizing to me that basically the two themes there are chant the holy name and avoid offenses to Vaishnavas. Again and again and again we're told, avoid Vaishnava aparats, avoid Vaishnava aparats. They're so destructive to devotional service. We have to be very careful about this. And the mind will dictate that, no, this is a matter of principle, this is a matter of everyone should know, this is a matter of this person's such a fool, or this person's offended me, or this person doesn't know what he's doing, or so many ways. Or just idle talk. We'd like to, what is that? Prajalpa, idle talk. And then the idle talk leads to idle talk about Vaishnavas, and that leads to Vaishnav Ninda. In so many ways we can, or we hear, we sit and hear even to sit and hear the blasphemy of a Vaishnava is an offense. In Nectar Devotion it said you should cut out the tongue of the blasphemer, or defeat him with arguments, or else just go away. Some places it said kill yourself, but we don't recommend that. At least go away. We hear that some sacrifices, the Lord Shiva was being, I think, blasphemed at the Daksha Yagya, and sages were holding their ears and leaving. Yes, that one shouldn't hear blasphemy of devotees, and one shouldn't offend devotees in any way. Very, very important. Any questions?
The result of committing intentionally offense and unintentional...
Unintentional offense also.
Same reaction.
Intentional, of course, is worse, but unintentional offenses to Vaishnavas performed out of ignorance or foolishness, or you didn't know what a Vaishnava aparad was. May not. You're ignorant. What do they say in the law? Ignorance is no excuse. So one should be very careful. One should know what a Vaishnava aparad. One should know what a Vaishnava is. One should know what a Vaishnava aparad is. And one should be very careful. It's said that, I think, maybe Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, he wouldn't hear blasphemy of Vaishnava. He just wouldn't hear criticism of Vaishnavas. He'd say, all the Vaishnavas are engaged in Krishna's service. That's all. He just wouldn't hear it. And we eat it for breakfast. We get on the internet and we find those sites where Vaishnavas are criticized, and we look with great interest to see what the latest scandal is. This is like mundane life, where people live for that. They pick up the newspaper and they read the latest hot topics about this movie star or this politician. So if we do that in the Vaishnava community, we will come to regret it. We can lose our taste for devotional service. It's said that by offenses to Vaishnavas, Shreya Kareva Chandrika Vitaranam, by chanting Hare Krishna, one's Krishna consciousness becomes like the waxing moon, getting brighter and fuller by the day. But by Vaishnava aparads, one's devotional service becomes the waning moon. It gradually diminishes. We should be very careful. Api chet sudaracharo bhajate mam ananyapak sadhareva samantavyat samyak vyavasita sa. Yes.
3 questions.
3.
Firstly, as you mentioned that one should especially avoid offenses against the spiritual master. So generally one's dealing with the spiritual master is very, very less. So in what sense one can commit offenses against the spiritual master, a general devotee?
Considering the spiritual master an ordinary man is an offense. Disobeying the spiritual master's instructions is an offense. Criticizing the spiritual master is an offense. Thinking presenting yourself as more knowledgeable than the spiritual master is an offense.
Disobeying the instructions, but generally people do not receive as such the direct instructions from the spiritual master.
People generally don't receive direct instructions. You receive some instructions, either directly or through some means. So if we neglect the instructions of the spiritual master, that's also an offense. To try to instruct the spiritual master is an offense. There's so many ways. One has to consider oneself the humble servant of the spiritual master. Not try to make the spiritual master one's order supplier or instrument for one's sense gratification.
Sometimes we have to deal with some devotees who are very frequently criticizing devotees, but our services do not prefer to cut down the relationship.
Let's see, you have to serve with devotees who have the habit of criticizing other devotees, find a new service. Or become very expert at cutting them off. They go on expressing their views about other Vaishnavas because no one stops them. You can let them know it's not appreciated. So what are the different ways? Well, I just gave one that our Goswami Acharya said, I don't know, all the devotees are engaged in the service of the Lord. That's all. You cut them off right there. Means I don't want to hear it. Or you can just tell them, where I come from, we don't like to hear criticism of Vaishnavas. Just tell them straight out. Or another one, they start to talk about their... in the 14th chapter of Krishna book, Krishna says, just change the topic on them. And as soon as they start prajalpa, then you throw the real thing at them. I was just reading Srimad Bhagvatam, and Vidura said to Uddhava, maybe if they're not too dense, they'll get the message that you don't appreciate their prajalpa. You can say something to your authorities that I'm having this problem, I'm trying to do my service, and my dear friends are doing Vaishnava Ninda. Is that okay? We shouldn't just go on hearing criticism of Vaishnavas. It's not good.
Third question. Many times we hear chastisement from the seniors for which we have not done anything. So that mind starts retaliating that.
Therefore one has to control the mind. Seniors may criticize, even the Guru may criticize us for something somebody else did or something we think that we were, innocent of. Don't go criticizing the spiritual master, even in the mind. It won't help us. All right, I got criticized. Good for me. If I didn't do it this time, I probably did it another time. If he didn't catch me on this, anyway, he would have caught me on that. It's good for me. I got a blessing. To be criticized by the spiritual master is a blessing, whether you think you deserve it or not. Is that okay? Anything else? This could be in fact it is a whole seminar. I've given seminars on this topic. So much could be said about this one issue. And it's so important. And even if you're a member of the Yadu dynasty, Krishna's own family, you don't get exempted. They were highly exalted, still they had to. Of course it was a pastime, but the pastime was to illustrate that even if you're a big, big man, and we've seen big, big men, they were like on top of the universe, but they offended Vaishnavas, and the next thing you knew, they were on the bottom of the universe. It's very, very risky business. Don't offend Vaishnavas. And if you're careful, there are ways of controlling your tongue in such a way that if you have to say something, it's said in a way that's respectful and, not offensive. One has to learn the art. Tata katipayar masayar vrishni bhojan dakadayaha yayu prabhasam samhrishta retire deva vimohitaha. A few months passed, and then, bewildered by Krishna, all the descendants of Vrishni, Bhoja, and Antaka, who were incarnations of demigods, went to Prabhas, while those who were eternal devotees of the Lord did not leave, but remained in Dwarka. One possible meaning Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives is that the Devata portions of these yadus went to Prabhas, and that the Vrishnis who actually stayed in Dwarka but invisible to the eyes of the common people. There are different ways of explaining these things. Tatra snatva patrin devan rishim chayava tadam pasa tarpayat vata viprebhyo gavo bahuguna daduhu. After arriving there, all of them took bath, and with the water of this place of pilgrimage, they offered their respects to the forefathers, demigods, and great sages, and thus satisfied them. They gave cows to the Brahmins in royal charity. Purport. Amongst the devotees of the Lord there are several divisions, mainly Nitya Siddhas and Sadhana Siddhas. The Nitya Siddha devotees never fall down to the region of the material atmosphere, even though they sometimes come onto the material plane to execute the mission of the Lord. The Sadhana Siddha devotees are chosen from the conditioned souls. Out of the sadhana devotees, there are mixed and pure devotees. The mixed devotees are sometimes enthusiastic about fruitive activities and are habituated to philosophical speculation. The pure devotees are free from all these mixtures and are completely absorbed in the service of the Lord, regardless of how and where they are situated. Pure devotees of the Lord are not enthusiastic to put aside their service to the Lord in order to go visit holy places of pilgrimage. A great devotee of the Lord in modern times, Sri Narottam Das Thakur, has sung like this: to visit holy places of pilgrimage is another bewilderment of the mind, because devotional service to the Lord at any place is the last word in spiritual perfection. Now, this is an instruction. The holy places may be purifying, but sometimes devotees get the idea they should go off to some holy place and just chant Hare Krishna and whatever. And Srila Narottam Das Thakur suggests that this is just Maya. They should do their service. I'll give you even an example, not concerning a place of pilgrimage, but it still applies. One time, the ISKCON press, the forerunner of the BBT, was situated in New York City, and Srila Prabhupada was going to be in San Francisco, on the other side of America, for Ratha Yatra. At that time, the San Francisco Ratha Yatra was the Ratha Yatra festival in America. Practically, that was it. San Francisco was the festival. And so the manager of the press had the idea, no, we weren't in New York, we were in Boston. He had the idea that we could jump into a van, drive across the country, takes about 3 days, non-stop driving, be there with Srila Prabhupada and take part in the Ratha Yatra, get Prabhupada's darshan, and then jump right back in the van and return to Boston. So when Prabhupada heard about this, he disapproved. He said they should stay there and do their service. Yeah. Thinking, to be with Prabhupada and stay there and do their service. So that place where we have service to do is as good as Vrindavan. Devotional service to the Lord at any place is the last word in spiritual perfection. So simply to go to some holy place, avoiding our service, is not recommended. Anything about this?
Question regarding last discussion about the Vaishnavas, Maharaj. If sometimes some devotees reveal their heart, some senior devotee or something, and in between if they start to criticize maybe authority or someone else, so if we think if we not respond that person, then he will feel offended. Sometimes not hear the things and all. So what we should do in that case?
Let's see. Some senior person is revealing his heart, and in the course of doing so, then he criticizes. Yeah. You have to manage the matter very carefully. It may be that for the benefit of the person, you have to let him say something so that, he unburdens himself, and then you can give some advice or suggestion. But you should know that you're on treacherous ground. We had one disciple of Satsvarup Maharaj, Baladev Vidyabhushan, who was doing interviews for Prabhupada Lilamrita when the book was being compiled or written. And he told me that he would sometimes visit devotees to interview them, maybe devotees who'd left, or maybe devotees who were still in the movement. He said, but especially devotees who were no longer active. He said, for 10 minutes or 20 minutes or half an hour, I'd have to listen to all this, extreme criticism. This, that, just extreme criticism of Vaishnavas. They did this to me, they did that to me, they ruined Prabhupada's movement, they did this, they did that. And then after the person got all that out of his system, then he would start to talk about Prabhupada, then he would start remembering Prabhupada's pastimes, sometimes he'd shed tears and so on. So this was the austerity that he had to perform, to sit there for half an hour while someone badmouthed the Vaishnavas. But it was for a higher purpose. But we don't recommend, that's a special case where there was some particular service to be performed by hearing Vaishnavaparans. But we should be careful.
So what should be the practical ways, especially for the junior we may say, for equals we may say, okay, I don't know to listen, or please.
Well, one thing you can say is, I'm not qualified to hear these things. I'm not qualified to hear these things, or even I can't afford to hear these things. I'm too junior to hear these things. Send them to someone who's senior, someone who maybe even someone who could tell him, Prabhu, this is your problem. Or who can manage it. That's up to you. But you have to consider.
Regarding this aspect, Maharaj, taking this services, spiritual services and all, as you mentioned the Prabhupada pastime, this pastime of Rath Yatra. Sometimes anyway, we are in the moment, throughout the life we have to do the services. So whenever we got a chance to associate with some senior devotees, the spiritual master. Somehow we try to manage the services.
We try to manage, but we should be careful that we don't neglect our service. In the case I cited, the service just would have stopped for a week. So it shouldn't be that the deities don't get their offerings or that something else important doesn't get done because you need to relish the nectar of associating with whoever it is. You need to be careful. We need to be responsible. Devotees are supposed to be responsible. So if you can arrange, then it's very good. But if you simply have to abandon your service to associate with Vaishnavas, that you should be very careful about. On the other hand, we should be eager to associate with Vaishnavas, and if we can rearrange things, then do it. Lavamatra sadhu sange, sarva siddhi hoy. Just by a moment's association with a Vaishnava, one can get so much benefit. So if you can rearrange your service, it's very good. And mundane affairs you can put all aside to get the association of a Vaishnava. Okay.
If a devotee criticizes other devotees, then is he considered a Vaishnava?
If a devotee criticizes another devotee, is he considered a Vaishnava? He may be considered a Vaishnava, just like we have here, that there are mixed devotees. Among the sadhana siddhas, some are influenced by fruitive activities and philosophical speculation. They're still Vaishnavas, but there are three, in the third canto it's analyzed that there may be Vaishnavas who are influenced by goodness, Vaishnavas influenced by passion, and Vaishnavas influenced by ignorance. Those who are not pure Vaishnavas may be influenced by these modes. So the instruction is that if a Vaishnava is influenced by the lower modes of nature, and so he doesn't behave properly, then one should offer respects within the mind, but avoid him. This is the instruction of the Acharyas. Still we offer him respect, he's a Vaishnava, but we don't want anything to do with him. We respect him at a distance. Like that.
Yeah, sometimes when you go outside, especially in the village preaching, people ask our comment regarding other organizations like some Babajis and all, some they found these faults and all. So whether we should comment or...
Sometimes people in villages or wherever, cities also ask us what we think of this Babaji or this avatar or this or that. So you have to manage that. Prabhupada sometimes would, different ways Prabhupada would manage it. Sometimes Prabhupada would say, "Who is that?" So as to give the person no importance. You know, he's like the avatar that everybody knows, the great sadhu, the great rishi, the great paramhansa that everybody's celebrating. You say, "Who?" No, we haven't. No, who? And then another tactic Prabhupada would say, "So what is his philosophy?" And then he would smash the philosophy without having to criticize the person directly, because Prabhupada quoted a proverb that if you kill a skunk with your hand gets a bad smell. So rather than directly criticizing them, he would say, "So what is his philosophy?" And it's interesting, lots of times people have no idea what their philosophy is. No idea. And then, of course, if they have no idea, then, well, why are you following a person if you have no idea what he's teaching? What is that? Doesn't matter, whether he's this or he's that or he's this, that. But how can you follow him if you don't know what he's teaching? And then if they do say what he's teaching, or what they think he's teaching, which may not always be the same, then you can smash what it is. That way you're not criticizing the person, but you're just speaking about the philosophy. Sometimes Prabhupada would write, just straight out call him a rascal. That was also there. Prabhupada would say that. But sometimes, these people are thinking this person is a great saint, and then if you criticize, they become offended. So Prabhupada, in this way, he said we kill the skunk, but not directly. There's an incident, though, where in the life of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, where one of his disciples attended a meeting and said that Ramakrishna Paramhansa, in Bengal, Ramakrishna Paramhansa, was something like a crazy monk. Just criticized him. And it created an uproar. People were ready, who'd been very receptive and so on, now they were ready to throw these Gaudiya Math people out on their ears and beat them or whatever. It was a huge uproar. So then the disciples came back and said, we had this nice program arranged, but then such and such made this remark about Ramakrishna Paramhansa, and people became so... And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was very pleased. He was very pleased. And he had the boldness to say it as it was. Another way is just to say, we don't know anything about such and such. We're following Bhagavad Gita. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, and you can quote something relevant, like Namam Dushkrita Namudha Prapajante Naradama. We don't know anything about them, but we're following Krishna. Whoever else there may be, we don't know, but Krishna is accepted as authority by all the acharyas, and we're following Krishna. And Krishna says, that's another approach. Anything else? For pure devotees of the Lord, so we were hearing about mixed devotees, sadhana siddhas. There's the nitya siddhas who are always perfectly pure. Sadhana siddhas, devotees in practice. Among them, some may be influenced by jnana and karma. For pure devotees of the Lord who are completely satisfied with the transcendental loving service of the Lord, there's hardly any necessity to visit the various places of pilgrimage. But those who are not so advanced have the prescribed duties of visiting pilgrimage sites and regularly performing the rituals. The part of the princely order of the Yadu dynasty who went to Prabhas performed all duties to be done in a place of pilgrimage and offered their pious actions to their forefathers and others. So these are some of the pious activities recommended for the people in general. Recommended for the people in general, to go to holy places of pilgrimage, to visit temples, to give charity, to respect saintly persons, to perform various rituals, so many, to observe tapasya, to do this, to do that. All of these things are there, but for those who are pure devotees, their principle is just to serve Krishna. Their principle is just to serve Krishna, and the other things are secondary. Another incident from the life of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, famous, that someone came and said that there's an invitation for some preaching program, but no one's here at the Mat, only such and such person, and he's observing Ekadashi. And which meant, serious observance, fasting and all this stuff. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, feed him and send him out to preach. Observing Ekadashi was less important than preaching Krishna consciousness. So these things are there to all of these rituals, and therefore there's a nice prayer by Madhavendra Puri. Oh, my prayers 3 times a day, I offer my obeisances to you. Oh, bathing, I offer my obeisances to you. All in this way, he offers obeisances to the forefathers and the religious ritualistic principles, and says, please forgive me, I'm not able to give any attention to you anymore because I've been attracted by Krishna. I've been attracted by Krishna. Aho bhatta swapachoto guriyan yaj jivagre vartate nama tubhyam te pustapaste svasuvu juhuvu svasyarya. Brahmanuchu Nama Grananti Yete. Oh, but how wonderful it is that anyone who has the holy name of Krishna on the tip of his tongue has already done everything. He's performed all the tapasyas, he's bathed in all the holy places, he's performed all the rituals, he's actually an Aryan. Why? Because your holy name is on his tongue. It's like if someone has a PhD, you don't have to ask, do you have a high school degree? Do you have an MA? If he has a PhD, it's understood that he has all the lower degrees. Or if he has 1,000 rupees, you don't have to ask him, do you have 50 rupees also? Do you have 100 rupees? No, if you've got 1,000 rupees, all the other lesser amounts are included. So the person who's engaged in Krishna consciousness is on a higher platform than the person who's recommended to perform various pious activities for purification. Yes. Yes.
This devotee has a question.
Hmm.
He's asking that some devotees are more engaged in sadhana, but rendering less service.
But what?
Rendering less service.
Hmm.
And some devotees are more attracted by service, but they spend less time sadhana. So what should be balancing?
Someone is more engaged in sadhana and less engaged in practical service. Someone's more engaged in practical service, less engaged in sadhana. So we have to appreciate all the devotees. And it may be that those who are, if they have some deficiency, not enough service, they can do more service, not enough sadhana, they can do more sadhana. But we have to appreciate. Sometimes I know there was some temple and some devotee was criticized that he's just like lazy. All he does is read and, all that kind of stuff. And later it was as more appreciation grew, they got to understand this person's advanced. He's more advanced. He's reading the books. The rest of us are just kind of doing stuff, but he actually has a taste for reading. And Prabhupada appreciated, yes, they have a taste for reading my books. Not that reading is sort of a spare time, optional, recreational activity. The real thing is serving. It's true, the real thing is serving, But it doesn't mean that reading is just a useless waste of time. Prabhupada wanted us to read the books. So some devotees have more taste for reading, some have more taste for puja, some have more taste for prachar, some have more taste for this, that. So we should appreciate all the devotees. They'll all make a contribution in some way or other. TK? We have 10 minutes, good. As a rule, every human being is indebted to God, the demigods, the great sages, other living entities, people in general, forefathers, etc., for various contributions received from them. Thus, everyone is obliged to repay the debt of gratitude. What is that? Devarshi bhutaptar nanam patrinam nikinkara nayam ranim charajan. Everyone, we have these debts. Devarshi, we're indebted to the demigods. They're supplying rain, they're supplying sunlight, they're supplying everything we need. Rishis are supplying knowledge. We're indebted to them. Devarshi, Bhuta, the living beings in general render service. So many, even dogs, sometimes guard our houses or do some sort of service. So many living beings, or people in general. Devarshi Bhuta Apta, our relatives, they do so much service for us, we're indebted to them. Rinam, human beings, Pitris. But, so we're indebted to all of them. If we don't acknowledge our debts, then we're ungrateful, we're remiss, we're negligent. But for one who's taken shelter of the personality of Godhead, sharanam sharanyam, he's no longer indebted. He doesn't owe anything. All his debts are paid. All his debts are paid. Because he's serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who's the origin and master of all these other living beings. So if Krishna is served, then everybody's served. It's interesting that those who criticize, this person, this young man has given up his family to join ISKCON. He's given up his job to join ISKCON. He's given up this to join ISKCON. It's a terrible thing that he's given up all of these things to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But if he made the same sacrifices for his country, they'd be glorifying him like anything. He had a young wife, but he went off to such and such place to fight for the nation. He had 2 young children, but he still went out to the front, risking his life for the nation. If it's for the nation, then you're a hero, you're the greatest person that ever lived, you're wonderful, you're fantastic, because Bhoma Ijati, you're worshiping your country. Saiva Gokra, you're no better than a cow or an ass, but those who are also cows and asses will applaud. Yes, the little ass will glorify the big ass. But the same sacrifice is made for Krishna. They'll say, "Oh, he's neglected his responsibilities. He's this, he's that." And this is their Maya. The Yadus who went to the Prabhas pilgrimage site performed their duties by distributing land, gold, and well-nourished cows in royal charity, as described in the following verse. Now, we've said there are so many things you don't have to do. On the other hand, there are prescribed duties that a devotee performs, because why should he not perform them? What is that? Naiva tasya kritena arto na kritene hakaschana nachasya sarvabhuteshu kaschid arta vyapashraya. The person in Krishna consciousness has nothing to do as prescribed duty, materially speaking. But he also has no reason not to perform the prescribed duties. So just to show the example, because yad yad acharati shreshtas tat tadeve tarojana, what the ordinary person does, or what the leading person does, the ordinary people follow. So the devotees sometimes perform prescribed duties just to set the example for those who are less intelligent and need to do these things. Or sometimes the devotee performs prescribed duties because he understands, I'm not so advanced in Krishna consciousness that I can just neglect everything. I don't need to follow Ekadasi, I don't need to attend the Mangal Arti, I don't need to do this, I don't need to do that, because I'm chanting the holy name, or I'm distributing books, or I'm doing this, I'm doing that. So the sadhana can be neglected. We should be careful. Srila Prabhupada said that the path of sadhana and the path of preaching are like parallel lines of a train track. When the lines are nicely running parallel, the train runs well. But if one of the lines is skewed, one of the tracks is skewed, then you'll have a disaster. So we should we should be engaged in preaching, that's the most important. But the sadhana is also important, because that keeps us well situated in Krishna consciousness. So both things should be attended to, and not that we just say, oh, that's just for the neophytes. It's said that about Sanatana Goswami, I think Sanatana Goswami, I think so, that his sadhana was like a line in the stone. And these are the Goswamis. They're in perfection, they're in ecstasy, they're in prema. Prema and Madhava, what is that? Shesha, Dashaya. They're in Krishna prema, but Sankhya Purvaka Namagana Nativi Kalava Sanikrito. They were very carefully chanting a prescribed number of rounds. They were following these regulative principles. So that's the sign of an advanced devotee, is that the difference between a neophyte devotee and an advanced devotee is that the neophyte follows the regulative principles, and that's what he's absorbed in. The advanced devotee is absorbed in Krishna consciousness, but he also follows the regulative principles. Not that as soon as I'm a little advanced, I think, I don't need these principles anymore. Then we can fall down. Or we shouldn't be very proud. I don't need to follow. Of course, sometimes for preaching, we let everything go hang. I told the story about how we were producing those books, and we set everything aside. 16 rounds we chanted, Mangal Arti we attended, and that was it. The rest of the time was just completely for book production. And sometimes for book distribution, devotees do the same thing. They just chant their rounds, they do the minimum sadhana, and then they go out and distribute books. And they do that for a week or 2 weeks or a month. And so it's very nice that so much preaching gets done. But we can't go on like that, neglecting sadhana, and everything will be all right. We have to be careful. If our sadhana is strong, and the best book distributors know that, the best book distributors have strong sadhana. Because they know that if my sadhana is strong, my book distribution will be strong. If my sadhana is weak, then I get mental, as they say. I start hovering on the mental platform. I start getting distracted by this and that. I start getting puffed up. I start becoming unwound in one way or another. So I need the sadhana so I'll have the ground under my feet on which to stand. So the best book distributors have excellent sadhana, especially the excellent book distributors with long records of book distribution, because anyone can be like a shooting star. You know what a shooting star is? Yeah. Anyone can be a shooting star and make a great show for a month, a few months, maybe a year, 2 years, and then the shooting star is gone. But we don't want to be like shooting stars. We want to be like the stars that stay in the sky. So for that, we need sadhana. And the devotees who have records like that, they've been distributing books for 30 years, 40 years, 50 years. They have strong sadhana. That's how they're able to continue. And they have strong enthusiasm for distributing books. So these two things, Bhagavad Vidhi and Pancharatrika Vidhi, they're meant to go together. Okay, we've reached 2:00. And thank you all very much. Now, this afternoon I leave for Bombay, but my thanks to all of you for coming and taking part in this program of Srimad Bhagvatam. Just to sit and speak to an empty room is not as much fun as being in a room with devotees who are keen to hear and who have good questions. So thank you all very much.